The afternoon sunlight caught the diamond on my finger as Marcus leaned across the jewelry counter, his voice dropping to what he thought was a conspiratorial whisper.
"Between you and me,"
he said to the silver-haired jeweler, "she actually thinks this thing is real." Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed. Because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. I stood 3 feet away, pretending to examine a display of tennis bracelets, my reflection carefully positioned in the glass case so I could watch them both. The jeweler, Mr. Bernard, according to his nameplate, glanced briefly in my direction before Marcus continued.
"Got it on eBay for $200.
Marcus laughed, that particular laugh he reserved for moments when he thought he was being clever.
Cubic zirconia. Pretty good fake though, right? She's been showing it off to everyone for 3 months.
My hand remained steady on the glass case, though inside I was calculating. $200. 3 months of lies. And now this, bringing me to Cartier on Rodeo Drive. Not for the proposal story he'd told everyone, but apparently to shop for his mother's birthday gift while publicly humiliating me to a stranger. Before we begin, I want to take a moment to thank each of you for being part of this incredible journey. If you're enjoying these stories of empowerment, consider subscribing. It's completely free and helps us build this amazing community. Now, let's dive in. Mr. Bernard's expression remained professionally neutral, but I caught the slight tightening around his eyes. He'd worked at Cartier for 37 years. I knew because I'd done my research on every employee before my meeting here today. A meeting scheduled for exactly 45 minutes from now. A meeting Marcus knew nothing about.
"I see,"
Mr. Bernard said carefully, his French accent more pronounced than it had been moments before.
"And you're looking for something for your mother today?" "Yeah, something nice but not too expensive,"
Marcus said, straightening his tie. The tie I'd bought him for Christmas, along with the suit, the shoes, and the watch he wore so proudly. The watch he told people he'd saved up for, earned through his own hard work at the investment firm. The investment firm where he was a junior analyst making $68,000 a year. I knew the exact figure because I'd seen his pay stubs, his bank statements, his credit card bills showing maxed out limits and minimum payments. I'd seen everything during the 6 months since I'd started investigating the man I was supposed to marry.
"What's your budget?"
Mr. Bernard asked. Marcus shifted his weight.
"Maybe around 3,000–4,000. Nothing crazy."
I moved to another display case, this one featuring engagement rings that started at $50,000 and climbed rapidly into 6 figures. My own ring, the one Marcus thought he'd fooled me with, caught the light again. The princess-cut stone, the platinum band, the delicate side stones. To an untrained eye, it probably did look like a decent imitation. Too bad for Marcus, it wasn't an imitation at all. The ring on my finger was a Cartier Destiné, purchased 7 years ago during a private sale in Paris. Cost $247,000. I'd bought it for myself after my first major acquisition went through, a reminder that I didn't need anyone to give me diamonds. I could buy my own. When Marcus proposed 6 months ago at that restaurant overlooking the ocean, he'd gotten down on one knee with an empty Tiffany box, flowers, a photographer he'd hired to capture the moment. He told me he'd been saving for years, that he'd wanted everything to be perfect, that the ring was being sized and would be ready in 2 weeks. 2 weeks later, he presented me with my own ring. My own ring that I'd kept in a safe in my private apartment across town. The apartment Marcus didn't know existed, just like he didn't know about the hedge fund I owned, the real estate portfolio spanning 3 states, or the fact that the modest 2-bedroom condo where we lived was just one of 12 properties I held in Los Angeles alone. I'd known immediately, of course, the weight of it, the way it caught light, the tiny engraving inside the band that I'd had customized. But I'd played along, gasping with surprised delight, crying the appropriate tears, calling my friends and family to share the news, all while wondering what kind of man steals his girlfriend's $250,000 ring and proposes with it, apparently planning to just hope she never noticed.
"Let me show you some options,"
Mr. Bernard was saying, unlocking a case.
"For your mother's birthday."
"Great, yeah," Marcus said, then glanced over at me.
"Babe, you good over there?"
I looked up, smiling the soft, slightly uncertain smile I'd perfected over these past months. "Yes, just looking. Everything here is so beautiful."
"Don't get any ideas,"
he said with a wink that made my skin crawl.
"That ring on your finger is all you need, right?"
"It's perfect," I said truthfully. Because it was. I'd chosen it myself. Marcus turned back to Mr. Bernard, who was arranging several pieces on a velvet tray. I watched them in the mirror's reflection, my mind drifting back to how we'd met, to the choices I'd made that led us here. It had been at a charity event 2 years ago, one of those $1,000-a-plate dinners where wealthy people gathered to feel good about writing tax-deductible checks. I'd been there representing the Westfield Foundation, my foundation, though nobody at the event knew it. I preferred to work through proxies, lawyers, anonymous donations. Wealth had taught me that being visible made you a target. Marcus had been there with his firm schmoozing potential clients, working the room with practiced charm. He was handsome in that conventional way, tall, good jawline, professionally whitened teeth, hair styled just so. When he approached me at the bar, I'd been prepared for the usual pitch. But Marcus had been different. He didn't ask what I did, didn't inquire about my connections. He talked about the cause, about growing up poor, about wanting to make a difference. He seemed genuine. Our first date was coffee, then dinner, then a weekend away. He'd been attentive, thoughtful, never pushing too hard. When he asked about my work, I'd given him the cover story I'd crafted years ago. Freelance consulting, modest income, getting by. I drove a 3-year-old Honda Civic to meet him, wore clothes from Nordstrom Rack, lived in that small condo that I'd intentionally decorated to look like a woman stretching her budget. I'd learned from past relationships to hide my wealth. The last man I'd been honest with had proposed after 3 months, then taken out credit cards in my name, forged my signature on loans, and disappeared with $200,000 before I'd caught on. The one before that had grown resentful of my success, his insecurity poisoning everything until he'd cheated with someone who made him feel like a man. So with Marcus, I decided to try something different. I wanted to meet someone who loved me for me, not my portfolio. Someone who wouldn't see dollar signs when he looked at me. For the first year, it had seemed to work. Marcus was sweet, supportive, never seemed bothered by splitting checks or dating on a budget. He talked about building a life together, about both of us working hard to create something. I'd let myself believe it was real. Then small things started shifting. Comments about how I should dress better for his work events. Suggestions that I was wasting my potential with freelance work. Questions about why I wasn't trying harder to land a real job. The shift was gradual enough that I almost missed it. But then came the night I found him in my apartment at 2 a.m., kneeling in front of my closet safe. He'd claimed he was looking for aspirin, that he'd gotten confused in the dark. but I'd seen the lockpick set on the floor, still in its case, purchased that day according to the Amazon receipt I found later in his email. That's when I'd hired the investigators. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, like this video, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. They'd uncovered everything over the following months. The gambling debts, $43,000 spread across various casinos and online sites. The secret credit cards maxed out on bottle service and expensive dinners with colleagues, all while letting me pay for our dates. The Instagram messages to other women, carefully curated to present himself as a successful young executive taking Miami by storm. The emails to his friends mocking my clothes, my car, my lack of ambition. And then, 3 months ago, my investigator had photographed him breaking into my apartment while I was supposedly at a consultation. He'd gone straight to the safe, spent 90 minutes working on it, and finally gotten it open. The camera I'd installed weeks earlier captured everything in high definition. His face illuminated by the contents, his hands rifling through documents, jewelry, cash. His expression when he'd found the ring. I'd watched the footage a dozen times, studying the calculation in his eyes. He'd held it up to the light, examined it from every angle, even taken photos with his phone. Then carefully, methodically, he'd put everything back exactly as it had been. Except for the ring. The ring he'd pocketed. 2 weeks later, he'd proposed.
What about this one?
Marcus was saying now, holding up a simple pendant necklace.
This seems nice. That's from our love collection,
Mr. Bernard said.
18-karat gold, $3,800.
Marcus winced slightly.
Maybe something a bit more affordable?
I glanced at my phone. 30 minutes until my meeting. I'd planned this timing carefully, arriving early with Marcus on the pretense of wanting to browse while he shopped for his mother. He'd jumped at the chance to come to Cartier, probably thrilled at the opportunity to continue his little joke with the staff. My attorney had advised against confronting Marcus directly. "Just end it," she'd said. "Give him back the ring. Walk away. Count yourself lucky you found out before the wedding." But I'd built a career on strategic thinking, on playing the long game. Marcus hadn't just stolen from me. He'd humiliated me, lied to everyone in my life, planned to marry me under completely false pretenses. A simple breakup felt insufficient, so I'd crafted something more fitting.
Perhaps I can show you some pieces from our classic collection,
Mr. Bernard suggested, moving to another case. As he turned, his eyes met mine in the mirror's reflection. There was something knowing in his gaze, a slight lift of his eyebrow that suggested he was wondering the same thing I was wondering about him. How much did he know? Marcus followed him, and I drifted closer, maintaining my role as the unassuming girlfriend browsing dreams she couldn't afford. My phone buzzed. A text from my attorney.
"All ready on our end. See you soon."
I typed back quickly. "Almost time."
"Babe, what do you think of this one?"
Marcus called out, holding up a bracelet. I walked over, examining the piece. It was lovely, white gold with small diamonds, elegant and understated.
"It's beautiful," I said honestly. "Your mom would love it." "How much?"
Marcus asked Mr. Bernard.
$2,200.
Marcus nodded slowly.
"Let me think about it. Can we look at some other options?" "Of course."
As Mr. Bernard turned to retrieve more pieces, Marcus leaned close to me, his voice low.
"These prices are insane. You can get the same stuff at Macy's for half the price."
I smiled, non-committally, saying nothing. Let him think Cartier was overpriced. Let him think he was the smart one, the savvy shopper who knew how to spot a deal and avoid getting ripped off. Let him think he'd fooled everyone. Mr. Bernard returned with several more pieces, spreading them across the velvet-lined counter. Marcus picked through them with the careful attention of someone managing a tight budget, asking prices, wincing at the numbers, trying to negotiate discounts that weren't coming.
"Perhaps I should mention,"
Mr. Bernard said after several minutes, his tone perfectly professional,
"that we have a private showing room available if you'd like more personalized service. Sometimes clients appreciate a quieter environment to make their decisions." "That's okay,"
Marcus said quickly.
"I'm fine here."
But Mr. Bernard's eyes had shifted to me, and I understood. He knew. Somehow, he knew. I checked my phone again. 20 minutes. "Actually," I said, "I think I need to use the restroom. Where is it?"
"Just down the hall to your left,"
Mr. Bernard said, pointing. Then, with perfect timing, he added,
"Though I should let you know we're expecting a private client shortly. The salon will be closed to other customers during that appointment." "How long?"
Marcus asked, irritation creeping into his voice.
"The appointment is scheduled for an hour." "Jesus,"
Marcus muttered.
"Guess some people have money to burn." "Indeed,"
Mr. Bernard said, and I caught the tiniest hint of amusement in his expression.
"I'll be right back, sir. Let me get some additional pieces from the back."
He disappeared through a door behind the counter, and I excused myself to the restroom, leaving Marcus alone with his ignorance and his fake sympathy for his overspending girlfriend. In the bathroom, I checked my appearance in the mirror. I'd dressed carefully for today, the same modest outfit I always wore around Marcus, nothing flashy or expensive looking. My hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, minimal makeup. The only luxury visible was the ring on my finger, and Marcus thought that was cubic zirconia from eBay. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Christine, my CFO. "Final confirmation. Meeting is set. Board members are standing by virtually. We have the documentation ready. Are you sure you want to do this?" I typed back, "Absolutely certain." He's going to be devastated. Good. I put my phone away and took a deep breath. Christine didn't know the full story, didn't know about the theft, the lies, the mockery. She thought I was just ending an engagement with a man who'd turned out to be after my money. She thought this meeting was about protecting assets before a messy breakup. She had no idea what I'd actually planned. When I returned to the showroom, Marcus was chatting with Mr. Bernard again, pieces still spread across the counter. He looked up as I approached. "There you are. So I'm thinking maybe the bracelet. What do you think?" "Lovely," I said again.
"Yeah, it's the best option in my price range,"
he said, then lowered his voice to that conspiratorial tone again as Mr. Bernard stepped away to process something. "Honestly, I think Mom will just be happy I came to Cartier at all, you know. The name is what matters. The actual piece doesn't have to be super expensive." I nodded, playing along. "That's thoughtful of you."
"Unlike some people,"
he said, louder now, glancing around the showroom at the other customers browsing million-dollar pieces. "I don't feel the need to blow my life savings on jewelry to feel important." The irony was so thick I could taste it. This man, wearing my watch, living in my condo, proposing with my stolen ring, was lecturing an empty room about fiscal responsibility. Mr. Bernard returned. "Will that be all for today, sir?" "Yeah, I'll take the bracelet," Marcus said, pulling out his credit card. The same credit card that was likely maxed out if my investigator's most recent report was accurate. He'd probably have to call the company to increase his limit just to cover this purchase. As Mr. Bernard processed the transaction, Marcus turned to me.
Happy?
What do you mean?
We came to Cartier like you wanted,
he said, a slight edge in his voice.
You got to see all the pretty things.
I appreciate you bringing me, I said softly, playing my role. It's nice to dream. His expression softened slightly, satisfied that I'd acknowledged my place.
Well, maybe someday, right? If your consulting really takes off.
Maybe, I agreed. The transaction completed, Mr. Bernard handed Marcus a small Cartier shopping bag with his mother's bracelet nestled inside.
Will there be anything else? No, that's it,
Marcus said. Then, with a smirk, he held up my hand with the ring.
Unless you want to tell my fiancé here what her ring is really worth.
The showroom seemed to pause. A couple nearby stopped their conversation. Another salesperson looked up from her station. I felt the moment crystallize, knowing this was it, the point of no return. Mr. Bernard looked at the ring on my finger, then at Marcus, then back at me. His expression remained professionally neutral, but something flickered in his eyes. Understanding. Perhaps even sympathy.
Sir,
he said carefully.
I'm not sure what you're... Come on,
Marcus interrupted, laughing.
I'm just having some fun. She thinks it's real, but I got it on eBay for $200. Pretty convincing fake though, right?
The silence that followed was heavy. The couple nearby exchanged uncomfortable glances. The other salesperson had gone very still. Mr. Bernard cleared his throat.
Sir, I really don't think... It's cubic zirconia,
Marcus continued, apparently oblivious to the tension he was creating.
She's been showing it off for months. Even had it appraised at some jewelry shop that told her it was worth like 40 grand.
Can you believe that? Some appraiser trying to scam her by pretending her $200 ring is worth something. My phone buzzed. The text was from security downstairs.
Your party has arrived. Coming up now.
I looked at Mr. Bernard and gave him the smallest nod. His expression shifted almost imperceptibly, and I knew he understood that whatever was about to happen, I was ready for it. Marcus, I said quietly, can I ask you something?
Sure, babe.
When you proposed to me 6 months ago, you said the ring was being sized. Do you remember that? He blinked, clearly not expecting this conversational turn.
Yeah? So?
You said you'd bought it months earlier, that you'd been saving up for years to buy me the perfect ring.
Right,
he said slowly, his smile becoming more uncertain.
What's your point?
My point is that I'm curious about something. I held up my hand, letting the ring catch the light. If you bought this ring on eBay for $200 6 months ago, why did you tell the jeweler at Tiffany's that you needed 3 months to finish paying off the custom design? The color drained from his face.
What?
I called Tiffany's last week, I continued, my voice still soft, still playing the gentle girlfriend. Spoke to a lovely woman named Claire. She remembered you very well. Said you'd come in asking about custom designs, got quoted $45,000, and left rather quickly. Marcus's mouth opened, but no sound came out. So I started wondering, I said, if you didn't buy this ring, and you didn't have it custom made, where exactly did it come from?
You're confused, he stammered. You don't know what you're talking about.
Don't I? I turned to Mr. Bernard. Would you mind examining this ring for me? I'd love a professional opinion on its authenticity.
Of course, madam.
Mr. Bernard held out his hand, and I slipped the ring off my finger for the first time in 6 months. Marcus made a sound like he was choking.
That's not necessary. Come on, let's just go. I'm sure Mr. Bernard has better things to do than— It will only take a moment,
Mr. Bernard said, pulling out a jeweler's loupe. He examined the ring carefully, turning it this way and that in the light. The silence stretched out, painful and electric. Finally, he looked up. His expression was carefully neutral, but his words were precise.
This is a Cartier Destiné engagement ring. Princess cut diamond, 3.5 carats, D-color, VVS1 clarity. Platinum setting with micro pave diamonds along the band. The engraving inside indicates it was part of our Paris collection from 7 years ago.
He paused, then continued with quiet authority.
The estimated retail value at the time of purchase would have been between $240,000 and $250,000. Current market value would be higher due to appreciation.
The silence that followed was absolute. Marcus stood frozen, his face cycling through white, red, and back to white again. His mouth worked, soundlessly, trying to form words that wouldn't come. The shopping bag with his mother's bracelet hung forgotten from his hand. The couple nearby had given up any pretense of shopping and were watching openly. The other salesperson had her phone out, probably texting her colleagues about the drama unfolding. I took the ring back from Mr. Bernard and slipped it onto my finger.
"Thank you,"
I said.
"That's what I thought."
"What? How? You?"
Marcus finally managed to form partial words.
"You don't have that kind of money. That's impossible. Where would you even get—"
"Get what?" I asked innocently.
"A $250,000 ring? You're right, that does seem unlikely for a struggling freelance consultant, doesn't it?"
His eyes were darting now, processing, calculating, starting to realize how badly he'd miscalculated.
"You couldn't afford that. There's no way. That jewelry store that appraised it must have been wrong," I suggested. "Like Mr. Bernard here is wrong. He seems pretty confident about his assessment."
"But—"
Marcus looked around the showroom desperately, as if seeking help from someone. Anyone.
"I don't understand. If you had a ring like that, why were you living in that apartment? Driving that car? Working those freelance jobs?"
"Those are excellent questions," I said.
"We should discuss them. In fact, I have a meeting scheduled to discuss exactly those topics."
I checked my phone again. Starting in about 5 minutes, actually.
"What meeting?"
As if on cue, the elevator at the far end of the showroom chimed. The doors opened and 3 people emerged. Christine, my CFO, impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit. Robert, my attorney, carrying his leather briefcase. And Patricia, the head of my private security team, looking every inch the professional bodyguard. They walked toward us with purpose, their footsteps echoing across the marble floor. Every eye in the showroom turned to watch them approach. Marcus saw them coming and took a small step backward.
"Who are they?"
"Colleagues," I said simply. Christine reached us first, extending her hand to Mr. Bernard.
"Christine Walsh, CFO of Westfield Holdings. Thank you for accommodating our meeting on such short notice." "Of course, Ms. Walsh,"
Mr. Bernard said, shaking her hand.
"The private salon is ready for you."
Marcus's head was swiveling between all of us like he was watching a tennis match.
"Westfield Holdings? What's going on?"
Christine turned to him, her expression politely curious.
"And you are?" "I'm her fiancé,"
Marcus said, but his voice had lost all its earlier confidence.
"Ah,"
Christine said, in a tone that suggested she knew exactly who he was and was not impressed.
"How nice."
Robert stepped forward, not offering a handshake.
"I'm Robert Chen, legal counsel. Ms. Montgomery, Are we ready to proceed?
Ms. Montgomery?
Marcus repeated faintly. I smiled at him, and it was not the soft, uncertain smile I'd been wearing for the past 2 years. This smile was different, sharp, confident, and absolutely genuine. I should probably clear up some confusion, I said. My full name is Sarah Elizabeth Montgomery. You've always just known me as Sarah Elizabeth. I kept my last name quiet because... I paused, letting the moment stretch. Well, I'm sure you can understand why someone with my background would want to be cautious about people knowing exactly who she is.
Your background?
He echoed weakly.
Ms. Montgomery founded Westfield Holdings 12 years ago, Christine supplied helpfully. We're a private equity firm managing approximately $4.3 billion in assets. We specialize in commercial real estate, technology acquisitions, and strategic investments.
4.3.
Marcus couldn't seem to finish the sentence. Billion, Christine confirmed.
With a B.
I watched the information hit him like a physical blow. His knees actually buckled slightly, and he grabbed the counter for support. The meeting we're about to have, I continued, is with my board of directors, my legal team, and the leadership of my company. We're here to discuss several matters, including the recent security breach at my personal residence and the theft of property valued at over $200,000. Marcus made a sound like a wounded animal.
We're also here,
Robert added, opening his briefcase and pulling out a thick folder,
to discuss the fraudulent statements made by Mr. Marcus Chen regarding his finances, his employment, and his intentions toward Ms. Montgomery. We have documentation of gambling debts totaling $43,000, credit card fraud, attempted identity theft, and breaking and entering.
We're engaged,
Marcus gasped.
I was going to pay it all back. I was just borrowing.
Stealing,
Robert corrected quietly.
The legal term is stealing.
The ring is mine, I said, holding up my hand. I bought it 7 years ago in Paris. I have all the original documentation, including the custom engraving you never bothered to check. When you broke into my safe, you didn't just steal a ring. You stole my property, proposed to me with it, and then planned to marry me under completely false pretenses. Marcus's shopping bag fell from his hands, hitting the floor with a soft thud.
Sarah, please, let me explain. I can explain everything.
I'm sure you can, I said, and you'll have plenty of opportunities to do so. To me, to the police, and eventually to a judge.
Police?
The word came out as barely a whisper. Patricia stepped forward, pulling out her badge. She wasn't just private security. She was also a licensed private investigator with law enforcement connections.
Mr. Chen, we're not arresting you today, but I do need to inform you that charges are being filed. Grand theft, breaking and entering, fraud. You should probably contact a lawyer.
The showroom had gone completely silent. Even the other customers had stopped, pretending not to watch. This was better than any reality TV show. This was real-life drama unfolding in one of the world's most prestigious jewelry stores. Mr. Bernard cleared his throat delicately.
Perhaps the private salon would be more appropriate for this conversation.
Excellent idea, Christine said. She turned to Marcus with a professional smile that didn't reach her eyes.
You're welcome to join us, Mr. Chen. We have several documents that require your attention. I can't.
Marcus looked at me, his expression desperate now, pleading.
Sarah, come on. You don't have to do this. We can work this out. I made mistakes, but I love you. Don't you love me?
The question hung in the air between us. Did I love him? Maybe once I had, or thought I had. Before I discovered the lies, the theft, the mockery. Before I watched him laugh with his friends about how he'd tricked me. Before I sat in my real apartment, the penthouse he didn't know existed, and watched security footage of him pawing through my personal belongings like a burglar. No, I said simply. I don't think I ever did. I think I loved the person I hoped you might be, but that person doesn't exist. His face crumpled, and for a moment I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. Then I remembered him standing at this very counter 20 minutes ago, laughing about his $200 fake ring, mocking me to a stranger, so certain of his own cleverness.
The private salon is this way,
Mr. Bernard said, gesturing toward a discreet door at the back of the showroom.
Please, follow me.
Christine, Robert, and Patricia fell into step behind him. I followed, then paused and looked back at Marcus, who remained frozen by the counter, his face a mask of shock and disbelief.
Are you coming?
I asked.
Or do you need a moment to process?
He opened his mouth, closed it, then finally managed.
This is insane. You're insane.
You've been lying to me for 2 years. I have, I agreed pleasantly. I wonder where I learned that behavior. The door to the private salon opened, revealing an elegant room with plush seating, soft lighting, and a conference table already set up with bottled water, legal pads, and a large monitor for the virtual board meeting. Through the window, I could see the Rodeo Drive traffic continuing its usual flow, ordinary people going about their ordinary days, completely unaware of the reckoning taking place in this room. I stepped inside, the door beginning to close behind me.
Sarah, wait!
Marcus lunged forward, catching the door.
Please, can we just talk? Just the two of us? 5 minutes?
I looked at him, really looked at him, for perhaps the first time since all of this had started. He looked smaller somehow, diminished. The confident swagger was gone, replaced by something desperate and grasping. 5 minutes, I said finally. But they stay. I nodded at my team. Christine and Robert exchanged glances but took seats at the far end of the table, giving us the illusion of privacy while remaining present. Patricia positioned herself by the door, her expression professionally blank. Marcus stumbled to the chair across from mine, collapsing into it. His hands were shaking as he ran them through his hair.
I don't understand. How is this real? When did you...
build a multi-billion-dollar company, I finished. I started when I was 23, took a settlement from a lawsuit against my former employer. They'd stolen my product design and marketed it as their own, and turned $170,000 into my first million within 18 months. I'm good at what I do, Marcus.
Very good.
But the apartment, the car, your whole life was a test, I said bluntly. One you failed spectacularly. He flinched.
That's not fair. You lied to me from the beginning.
I did, I acknowledged. Because the last 3 men I dated, the ones I was honest with about my money, all ended badly. One stole from me. One tried to ruin my business out of spite. One proposed after 6 weeks and already had a prenup drafted that would have given him half my assets in a divorce. I leaned forward, my voice hard. So yes, I lied about who I was. I wanted to meet someone who'd love me, not for my bank account. And you know what? For a while, I thought maybe I'd found that. You seemed different, genuine, kind.
I was,
he protested.
I am.
You stole my ring, Marcus. I was going to tell you.
When?
The word cracked like a whip. After we were married? After you'd legally entitled yourself to half my assets? After you'd convinced me to add your name to accounts and deeds? His silence was answer enough. I sat back, suddenly tired. You know what the worst part is? It's not even the theft. It's that you could have just told me the truth about your debts, your struggles, your mistakes. I would have helped you. I've helped dozens of people in my life who needed it. Friends, family, even employees who got into trouble. I'm not heartless. Then help me now, he pleaded. Please. I'll do anything. I'll pay back every penny. I'll go to therapy. I'll prove to you that I can change. By not pressing charges? I asked quietly. He nodded eagerly. Yes, exactly. We can work through this. Couples overcome worse things than this all the time. I stood up, walking to the window. Below, tourists strolled past luxury storefronts, probably dreaming of the lives they might have if only they had more money. I'd learned the hard way that money didn't solve problems, it just gave you different ones. Let me tell you what's going to happen, I said, not turning around. Robert is going to present you with several documents. The first terminates our engagement officially. The second details exactly what you took from me and when. The third is a payment plan for restitution, though we both know you can't afford it. I heard him start to protest, but I continued. However, if you sign all 3 documents, agree to never contact me again, and get help for your gambling addiction, I will not press criminal charges. You'll have a civil judgment against you, your credit will be ruined, and you'll spend the next decade paying me back. But you won't go to jail. I turned to face him. That's my offer. It's generous, considering what you did, and it's non-negotiable. Marcus stared at me, and I watched the calculation happening behind his eyes. He was weighing his options, considering whether to fight or fold. I'd seen that same look when he played poker with his friends. I'd watched him make these same mental gymnastics, trying to figure out if he could bluff his way to victory. And if I don't sign? He asked finally. Then Patricia makes a phone call, and you're arrested before you leave this building. Grand theft is a felony in California. You'd be looking at real prison time, especially with your financial records showing intent and planning. Robert cleared his throat. For what it's worth, Mr. Chen, I advised Ms. Montgomery to pursue criminal charges regardless of your cooperation. She's being far more merciful than I would be in her position. Merciful, Marcus repeated bitterly. Ruining my life is merciful? You ruined your own life, Christine said, speaking up for the first time. Her voice was cold. Ms. Montgomery just refused to let you ruin hers in the process. The silence that followed was heavy with implication and consequence. Through the walls, I could faintly hear the normal sounds of the Cartier showroom. Voices, footsteps, the gentle chime of the elevator. Life continuing on while in this room, everything changed. Marcus's shoulders slumped in defeat. Where do I sign? Robert slid the documents across the polished conference table, each page marked with bright yellow tabs indicating where Marcus needed to sign. The silence in the private salon was broken only by the soft rustle of paper and Marcus's ragged breathing. Read everything carefully, Robert instructed, his voice professionally detached. You're waiving certain rights here. I'd recommend having your own attorney review these, but given the circumstances, I doubt you want to wait. Marcus picked up the first document with trembling hands. I watched his eyes scan the words, though I doubted he was actually processing them. He looked like a man in shock, his earlier confidence completely shattered. This says I have to pay back $247,000.
he said weakly. Plus interest, plus legal fees. That's over $300,000 total. That's correct, Robert confirmed. Monthly payments of $2,000 over 15 years. Given your current salary, it's aggressive but manageable if you adjust your lifestyle accordingly. Adjust my lifestyle? Marcus's laugh was hollow. I can barely afford my current lifestyle. Then I suggest you start making better financial decisions, Christine said coolly. Cancel the bottle service. Stop gambling. Actually, pay your credit cards. Revolutionary concepts, I know. Marcus flinched but said nothing. He moved to the second document, the official termination of our engagement. His eyes lingered on certain phrases. Irreconcilable differences, breach of trust, fraudulent misrepresentation. You really thought of everything, he muttered. I had time, I said. 6 months of knowing exactly what you'd done, watching you lie to my face every single day. Yes, I thought of everything. He looked up at me, and for a moment I saw something like genuine remorse in his eyes. I really did love you, Sarah. At the beginning. That wasn't fake. Maybe not, I acknowledged. But it wasn't enough, was it? The moment you found out I had something valuable, you took it. You didn't ask. Didn't confess. You just took it and built an entire proposal on that theft. I panicked, he said desperately. I saw the ring, and I knew I could never afford anything like that for you, and I thought if I could just get you to marry me, everything would work out somehow. Work out how? I asked. What was your endgame, Marcus? Were you planning to keep stealing from me? To slowly gain access to accounts until you could drain them? Or were you just going to be the supportive husband living off my money while pretending you didn't know I had any? He didn't answer, which was answer enough. Patricia stepped forward, checking her watch. Ms. Montgomery, we need to proceed. The virtual board meeting is scheduled to start in 10 minutes. Board meeting? Marcus looked confused. Why would your board need to be involved in this? Christine smiled thinly. Because theft from the CEO is a company security matter. We have protocols for breaches like this. Your actions didn't just affect Ms. Montgomery personally. They represented a potential vulnerability in our executive protection systems. Plus, Robert added, there's the matter of the background check we ran on you 6 months ago. The one that somehow missed your gambling debts and credit issues. We need to review our vetting procedures. Marcus's face went even paler. You ran a background check on me? Of course we did, I said. The moment you proposed. Standard procedure for anyone entering the personal life of someone in my position. The problem is you were very good at hiding your debts. Spread across multiple states, multiple casinos, online platforms. It took my private investigators 3 months to piece it all together. 3 months. Marcus's voice trailed off. So when you said yes, when you acted so happy, I already knew, I confirmed. I knew about the debts. I knew about the credit cards. I just didn't know about the ring yet. That revelation came later, courtesy of my apartment security cameras. His head snapped up. Security cameras? Did you really think I wouldn't have cameras in a safe room? I asked. I watched you break in, Marcus. Watched you pick the lock. Badly, by the way, you scratched the mechanism. Watched you go through my things. Watched you find the ring and decide to steal it. You watched, he repeated numbly. And you still went through with the engagement. I wanted to see how far you'd go, I said honestly. I wanted to know if you'd confess, if you'd come clean, if somewhere inside you there was still enough decency to tell me the truth. And when I didn't,
I planned this. I gestured around the elegant salon. Every detail. The timing, the location, the witnesses. I wanted you to feel exactly what I felt when I watched that security footage. Betrayed, humiliated, foolish for ever trusting you. Marcus stared at me, and something shifted in his expression. The desperation faded, replaced by a bitter resignation. You're cruel. You know that? You could have just broken up with me. Instead, you turned this into some elaborate revenge fantasy. You're right, I said calmly. I could have handled this quietly, ended things, filed a police report, moved on with my life. But you didn't just steal from me, Marcus. You made me look stupid. You proposed to me with my own ring in front of my friends and family, knowing they'd all congratulate me on something that was built on a lie. I leaned forward, my voice hardening. And then today, you brought me here, to Cartier, of all places, and laughed with that jeweler about how I was too dumb to know my ring was fake. You humiliated me publicly, to a stranger, for your own amusement. So yes, I wanted you to experience that same humiliation. I wanted you to know how it feels. The silence that followed was absolute. Even Christine and Robert looked slightly uncomfortable with my honesty. Finally, Marcus picked up the pen. You win, he said quietly. You absolutely, completely win. He signed the first document, then the second, then the third. Each signature was a defeat, a surrender, an ending. When he finished, he pushed the papers back across the table and stood up. I'll have my things out of your apartment by the end of the week, he said, his voice empty. I assume I'm still allowed access long enough to pack? Patricia will accompany you, I said. Tomorrow at noon. You'll have 2 hours. He nodded, not looking at me. Can I go now? One more thing, I said, standing as well. I pulled the ring off my finger and held it up. I want you to understand something. This ring was special to me because I earned it. I bought it for myself after my first major success, as a reminder that I didn't need anyone to give me diamonds. I could make my own fortune, build my own life, create my own happiness. I set the ring on the table between us. When you stole it, you didn't just take a piece of jewelry. You took a symbol of everything I'd worked for, everything I'd built, and you tried to turn my own achievement into a token of your fake devotion. Marcus looked at the ring, then at me, and I saw his eyes were wet. But here's what you didn't understand, I continued. That ring was never what made me valuable. My worth isn't in the diamonds I own or the money I've made. It's in what I've created, the lives I've changed through my foundation, the businesses I've helped grow, the people I've employed. You saw the ring and thought you saw everything. You never bothered to look deeper. I picked up the ring and slipped it back on my finger. So yes, I wanted my revenge. I wanted you to feel small and foolish and exposed. But more than that, I wanted you to understand that you never really knew me at all. You fell in love with a fantasy. A quiet, struggling woman you could control and eventually rescue. The real me, I don't need rescuing. I never did. Marcus swallowed hard. I'm sorry, he whispered. For whatever it's worth. I'm genuinely sorry. I know you are, I said. Sorry you got caught. Patricia opened the door, gesturing for Marcus to leave. He walked toward it slowly, his shoulders hunched, the Cartier shopping bag with his mother's bracelet still clutched in one hand, a $2,000 purchase that he'd made mere minutes before his entire world collapsed. At the doorway, he paused. Were you ever going to tell me about who you really are? I considered the question. Maybe, if you'd proven trustworthy, if you'd shown me that you loved me for the right reasons. But you didn't. Instead, you showed me exactly who you are when you think no one's watching. He nodded slowly, then walked out. Patricia followed, and the door closed behind them with a soft click. The silence in the room felt different now, lighter somehow, like a weight had been lifted. Christine let out a long breath. Well, that was intense.
Necessary,
Robert corrected, gathering the signed documents.
though I maintain you should have pressed criminal charges.
Maybe, I agreed. But this way, he has a chance to actually change. Prison would have just made him bitter and angry. This way, every month for the next 15 years, he'll remember what he did and what it cost him. Cold, Christine observed, but effective. I walked back to the window, looking out at Rodeo Drive. Somewhere down there, Marcus was probably standing on the sidewalk, trying to process what had just happened to his life. Part of me felt bad for him. The part that had once believed his kind words and gentle touches were genuine. But mostly, I just felt relieved. Relieved it was over. Relieved I'd found out before the wedding. Relieved I'd trusted my instincts enough to investigate rather than ignore the warning signs.
Ms. Montgomery?
Mr. Bernard appeared in the doorway.
Your other appointment is ready whenever you are.
Other appointment? Robert looked confused. I smiled. I didn't come to Cartier just for the confrontation. I actually have something to purchase. Christine's eyes widened. You didn't.
I did.
Mr. Bernard led us deeper into the store, past the public showrooms to another private area I'd never seen before. The door opened to reveal an intimate viewing room with a single display case in the center, dramatically lit. Inside the case was the most spectacular necklace I'd ever seen, a cascade of diamonds and sapphires that caught the light and threw rainbow sparkles across the walls. The piece was bold, artistic, completely stunning.
The Cartier Étoile Céleste,
Mr. Bernard announced.
One of only 3 ever made. The last one sold at auction for $4.2 million. This piece has been held in our private collection for 7 years, waiting for the right buyer.
Christine whistled softly. And you're the right buyer?
I am,
I confirmed.
I've had my eye on it for months. Been negotiating with Cartier Corporate, waiting for them to agree to sell. They finally called last week with an offer I couldn't refuse.
How much? Robert asked, his lawyer instincts kicking in. $3.8 million, I said. A bargain, really, considering its rarity and provenance. Mr. Bernard opened the case and carefully lifted the necklace. The sapphires were the color of deep ocean water, each one flawless. The diamonds surrounding them added fire and brilliance. Together they created something that transcended mere jewelry. This was art.
Would you like to try it on?
Mr. Bernard offered. I nodded, and he fastened it around my neck. The weight was substantial but comfortable, the stones cool against my skin. I looked at my reflection in the mirror mounted on the wall. The woman looking back at me was someone I barely recognized. Not because of the necklace, though it was spectacular, but because of everything else. The confidence in my posture, the clarity in my eyes, the sense of absolute certainty about who I was and what I deserved. For 2 years, I'd played small, dressed down, driven modest cars, lived in that cramped condo. All to test Marcus, yes, but also because some part of me had been afraid. Afraid that my success made me unlovable. Afraid that my wealth would always attract the wrong people. afraid that I'd never find someone who could love me for myself. But looking at my reflection now, I realized that fear had been holding me back in ways I hadn't even recognized. I'd been so busy hiding my light that I'd forgotten how to let it shine.
"I'll take it," I said.
"Excellent choice,"
Mr. Bernard said warmly.
"I'll have the papers drawn up immediately."
As he bustled away to handle the transaction, Christine moved to stand beside me. "You know what I love about this?" she said quietly.
"What?"
"Marcus spent $2,000 on a bracelet today, probably maxing out his credit card to do it, thinking he was being generous. Meanwhile, you're buying a necklace that costs almost 2,000 times more than his entire purchase. It's poetic justice."
"It's not about the money," I said.
"Isn't it, though? A little bit?"
I smiled. "Maybe a little bit, but mostly it's about this." I touched the necklace gently. "This is me buying myself another symbol. Not of my first success like the ring, but of my freedom. Freedom from lies. Freedom from people who see me as a target or a prize. Freedom to be exactly who I am without apology." Robert joined us, having finished reviewing the purchase documents.
"Everything looks good. Wire transfer should go through within the hour."
"Perfect." I turned away from the mirror. "Now, about that board meeting. What's on the agenda besides the security review?"
"The usual,"
Christine said, pulling out her tablet. "Q4 projections, the Melbourne acquisition, your proposal for the new education initiative. Nothing urgent." "Good. Let's keep it brief. I want to go home." "Home? Christine asked carefully.
"Or apartment home."
Home, I confirmed.
"The penthouse. I'm done pretending."
The board meeting lasted 45 minutes and was conducted via secure video conference, with me sitting in Cartier's private salon wearing a $4 million necklace, flanked by my CFO and attorney. It was surreal in the best possible way. I reported on the security breach, outlined the steps we'd taken to address it, and assured the board that no company information had been compromised. They expressed appropriate concern and approved additional security measures for all executive residences. When the meeting ended, I felt lighter than I had in months, maybe years. Mr. Bernard returned with the documentation for the necklace, and I signed the papers authorizing the wire transfer. The piece would be delivered to my penthouse by armored car the following day, along with insurance documentation and authentication certificates.
"It's been a pleasure doing business with you, Ms. Montgomery,"
Mr. Bernard said as we prepared to leave.
"And if I may say so, I'm glad you got your ring back."
I smiled. "You knew, didn't you, when Marcus was bragging about the fake?"
"I've worked with Cartier pieces for 37 years,
he said with a slight smile.
"I could identify a destiné from across the room. When I saw your ring, I knew immediately it was genuine. What I didn't know was the story behind it.
What tipped you off that something was wrong?"
"The way you held yourself,"
he said simply. "You moved like someone accustomed to valuable things. You studied the pieces in our cases with an educated eye. And when your fiancé spoke to me about the fake ring, you didn't react with the confusion or hurt I would expect from someone genuinely deceived. You reacted like someone waiting for a cue. You're very observant."
"It's my job,"
he said.
"Also, Christine called ahead and briefed me on the situation. We do try to accommodate our most valued clients."
I laughed. Of course she did. Outside Cartier, the late afternoon sun was painting Rodeo Drive in shades of gold. Tourists walked past with shopping bags, couples window shopped, valets retrieved expensive cars. The world continued its usual rhythm, indifferent to the personal drama that had just unfolded inside. Christine, Robert, and Patricia said their goodbyes and headed back to the office. I stood on the sidewalk for a moment, breathing in the warm California air, feeling the weight of the engagement ring on my finger, my ring, earned and owned and reclaimed. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I opened it. It was from Marcus. I meant what I said. I really am sorry. For what it's worth, knowing you, the real you, was the best part of our relationship. I wish I'd been worthy of that. I hope you find someone who is. I stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back. I hope you get help. And I hope you learn that real love isn't about what you can take from someone, but what you're willing to give. I blocked the number before he could respond. My driver pulled up in my actual car, a midnight blue Tesla Model S Plaid that had been sitting in my penthouse garage for the past 2 years. I slid into the back seat and gave him my real address. As we drove through Beverly Hills toward my penthouse, I thought about everything that had happened. The lies I'd told, the test I'd designed, the revenge I'd orchestrated. Part of me wondered if I'd gone too far, if I'd been cruel. But then I remembered Marcus's face at that counter, laughing about fooling me, remembered the security footage of him rifling through my safe, remembered every condescending comment about my lack of ambition, every suggestion that I should try harder, every moment he'd made me feel small while living off my money. No, I hadn't gone too far. I'd gone exactly far enough. The penthouse was quiet when I arrived, all glass and light and sweeping views of the city below. This was my real home, the place I'd hidden for 2 years. Tonight, I wouldn't hide anymore. I walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows and looked out at Los Angeles spreading before me like a glittering carpet. Somewhere out there, Marcus was probably sitting in that modest condo, surrounded by boxes, contemplating his next 15 years of payments. And somewhere else, maybe, was someone who could love me for exactly who I was. Someone who wouldn't need to be tested or tricked or trapped into honesty. Someone who would see my success and feel proud rather than threatened. Someone who would understand that the ring on my finger wasn't just jewelry, it was a promise I'd made to myself to never settle for less than I deserved. But if that person never came along, that was okay too. I had my company, my foundation, my work. I had the satisfaction of building something meaningful. I had the freedom to be exactly who I was without apology or disguise. I had, after all, bought my own diamonds, and they sparkled just fine on their own. The end. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.